Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas, and I'm sitting down today with my guest, Dan French, who is the managing director at ATX Acquisitions, the CEO of ResProp Management, and the partner at Rex. So excited to be jumping in, having some conversation, learn a little bit about kind of each of these different roles that you're a part of here, Dan, and just learning from the experience that you've kind of had over the years. So first and foremost, thank you so much for being here. Why don't we just start with a little bit of background setup, setting the stage kind of for the viewership here. Maybe just especially with ATX acquisitions, tell us a little bit about what y'all do, and then we can
Mhm.
kind of backstep into a little bit about your background specifically. But let's start with what do you do on a daily basis? What does the business do?
I don't even know what I do on a daily basis, but no. Yeah, I'll unpack some of that. But thank you for having me on, Tanner, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. So, yeah, look, I've been in real estate, transacting, operating, and investing in real estate for 20 years. And what's been really fun is that I've been with the same business partner for the entire time. So I'm still with him. He lives in Austin as well. His name is Pete Rex. A wonderful guy. I grew up with him since the time I was 7. And he, credit to him and his brother. His name is Rob, but they pulled me into real estate back in 2004. So this is again 20 years ago. And I'm like 23 or 24 at this time. And I was pursuing a career in public service, and that was my vocation, what I felt like I was called to do at that time. A 9/11 for me was happened around when I was around, 20 years old. So I really felt called into this idea of public service. It was also a function of like my father had passed away. He had a long battle with cancer. It was really difficult, and passed away like right after I graduated from undergrad. So I got my degree. 10 days later, he passed away. I find myself back in my hometown. I had this thing stirring in my heart about going into public service. So in a very circuitous way, like I found myself running for elected office, had no idea that I would do that. So that was what I was doing in my 20s, and actually achieved that. I was an elected official for 7 years in my hometown. Great fun, a great ride. I was a councilman for 5 years, and the equivalent of being like a mayor, so a town supervisor. But that's just a backdrop, right? I'm telling you that story because the reason why I said yes when Pete, my partner Pete, and his brother Rob approached me to go into real estate was um, I wanted to create future wealth for I wanted to have a family someday, and now I have a big family, 4 kids, and so I think that resonates with a lot of people. They might want to they have one thing they're doing, but they know real estate is a path to future wealth. And so I don't know if I'm going too far into this, Tanner, but let me just finish this whole thread.
Please.
Yeah, so we get a couple years under our belt, we felt like we're really on top of the world, putting together small deals. These are like 4 unit type buildings, and before you know it, we had maybe 100 units. And to me, growing up, that was like a very big portfolio. And by '08, when the GFC happened, we got in trouble really fast. So we made a lot of mistakes, but we powered through all that. And the other side of that became a much better story. Like by 2011, I joined Pete full time, right? That was all passive. I thought it was going to be very passive. I got very active actually, when things went haywire. But I joined him full time in late 2011, and we bought $2 billion in total asset value, coming out of the great financial crisis, focusing on Florida and Texas. And so, my beginnings in real estate were very much like part-time endeavor that turned into a full-time, almost like nightmare. Um, Fast forward, I made a full-time play into real estate investments and operations, and I saw a great ride. So long story, but I hope that's helpful for your listeners, because you never know how you're going to kind of find your path. My true path is to be in business. That's my true vocation, to serve people in business. So let me
I,
stop
lo-
there.
I love that. I love it so much. And, for most of the audience being kind of in the business world in general, I love what you said there, creating future wealth and things like that. And it's, that's a
Mhm.
big piece of even what we do in business. And real estate's such a big component of it. Even if, you get entrepreneurs that are looking at, I want to do business and all that kind of stuff. It's like, that's great, but what do you do with all the cash flow? Real estate's another great way to kind of plug that in. So I love having the conversation of both sides of this here. So I'm curious, as being in real estate for as long as you have and kind of being on the end that you were for the first number of years to kind of where you are today. What do you love most about real estate?
Well, there's so many things there. What I like the most is that you're never bored. And you can see that in, these titles don't really mean a lot to me, but it does show that we have like a very holistic view of real estate, like not just in the investment side, right? That's what ATX Acquisitions does. It's a private equity real estate investment firm. So we invest in deals. We are what's known as a sponsor, and then we'll get limited partners to come into deals with us, and we'll put our own capital at risk as well. But then we love operations like property operations, construction management. We have 15,000 units that we serve other owners. So we grew that business into becoming a third party provider for anyone that owns an apartment building that's essentially over 100 units. So we have 15,000 units, and most of it is 80% is like for third party owners, and we love that business as well. It's a tough business, but it's one where you can have a big impact on people's lives. You can improve residents' lives. You can do a great job for owners. You can treat vendors really well. You can pay your bills on time. Like simple things that I think create a better world. And people need to live in homes that are well maintained, that are safe, that are hopefully welcoming. Um, so that's another thing. And then technology, we're into real estate technology. A lot of our, almost all of our technological, or technology companies are centered around pain points that we've personally experienced as investors, asset managers, and operators in real estate. So if you take all of that, how could you ever be bored? You don't have to leave real estate to get anything you want. You have access to every single facet of our business world, I think, and it's the largest asset class in the entire world is real estate. So,
Yeah, that's really cool. So when you're looking at ATX acquisitions, if I'm understanding correctly, correct me kind of where I've kind of fallen off here. Um, Investment pool, risking kind of own capital, but finding investors to do specific deals, things like that, bringing them in,
right.
sharing in kind of the deal. Um, what types of deals do you tend to look for or do? Is it primarily ground up from development? Is it looking at buying individual single family homes to apartment complexes to kind of things that are existing in the market? Kind of what tends to be the types of deals that you all look for and bring investors in for?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say starting with like a mindset, we like to be contrarian. We like to be long-term oriented. So we love to hold for the long term, and we love to, really be aware of like where is a crowd headed, because oftentimes that leads to, irrational exuberance where people just get way ahead of themselves. They're going to overpay. They're going to do some things that don't make a lot of sense. They're taking too much risk, and sometimes they don't even realize it, right? Like in 2021, very famously now, or I'm sorry, infamously, people took floating rate debt. I don't think they know how much risk they were taking on until 2 years down the line when the Fed, did this enormous rate hike so fast, they got in real big trouble, right? So real estate, I think in times where everything's good, and especially if there's a zero interest rate environment, people look like geniuses, and they think it's risk free. And really, real estate's never been risk free, right? As we know, like people historically have, it's boom and bust, it's cyclical, and you really have to really be. I do think you have to be downside protected if you're going to be a good steward of capital. So
Mm.
that's number one, right? We're contrarians. That's why in 2019 we sold 1.5 billion of our portfolio. We had a portfolio of about 2 billion, and we felt like it got so frothy that we wanted to de-risk ourselves and de-risk our investment partners. So we did that. We executed that. That was took a while actually. We sold it deal by deal. Um,
Ooh.
so 100 deals, we've gone full cycle on about 90 of them. So we do retain a small asset or portfolio of different assets. So But yeah, what we focus on now is probably like mostly our niche is multifamily. So 100 unit plus buildings. We look for primarily in Florida, Texas, and great locations throughout those states, right? So we pick those because they're booming economically and they're very business friendly. So people are just going to follow the population growth will follow economic growth. That's the overall kind of investment thesis. It's put us in a good place, just catching good tailwinds by being in the right markets. And yeah, so I'll pause there.
I like it. How about the investors that you work with? So, I always like to go into the general question of like, who does your business serve and things like that. So when you
Mhm.
look at, finding investors for specific deals, talk to me about kind of what does that look like? Obviously an investor could be somebody with, $500 and ready to invest in something to folks with,
Right.
multi-million that they need to place that somewhere. What tends to be kind of the target market for y'all when you're looking for investors to do a deal with?
Yeah, we tend to focus on high net worth individuals, and that doesn't mean they're billionaires, but they have investable cash, and they're almost always they pretty much are accredited individuals. So for people at home, that means if you're an individual, you make 200K a year for at least 2 years, or if you're married, you make 300K for the last 2 years, or you have a net worth excluding your home of $1 million. So if you're an accredited investor, you can the SEC allows you to go into different private offerings that we would have. So we almost always use like what's called a Reg D 506C, which means we can broadly market it, put it on LinkedIn and put it anywhere, and I blasted emails out and whatever. But you have to be accredited to come into our deal. So the minimum investment size is typically, $50,000. Sometimes we'll go down to $25,000 to just to kick off a relationship. Um, and yeah, we love serving these folks that they want to be passive, right? They're looking for tax advantaged, um,
Mm.
to put their money to work and get a tax advantage because you can take the depreciation on the asset, and diversify their portfolio. Maybe they're very heavy in public equities, but they'd like to have some real estate in their portfolio. They don't want to go into a REIT, doesn't have the same tax advantages. So they want to go into like a private offering that we have, and then we have to convince them that our team has alpha, like we have something different that you can't find somewhere else. And then it's about creating relationships. It's like these are awesome people. A lot of them are doing they're investing their capital for their kids, you know, college education, or they have a philanthropic endeavor that they want to make, they want to double their money in 5 years so they can go give more. These are all kinds of different people, but that gets you a flavor of who we're seeking to serve. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good kind of description of kind of the general target market there. I love that.
Mhm.
Which, I would being a business related podcast, I always like to at least touch on the topic of marketing. It's one of those areas that many
Mhm.
businesses are like, I know we need to do this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have to learn that process as you go. So I'm curious, like as you guys as you all go through this process and you learn some of your target market and you're looking to get in front of them, right? You mentioned LinkedIn. Kind of what have been some ways that you've found to be effective kind of for marketing? Is it, you mentioned LinkedIn, is it partnerships with other, financial advisors? Is it,
Yeah.
partnerships with CPAs? Is it, other things out there that I'm not even thinking of? Kind of what has worked for y'all, or how do you get in front of the investors that you'd like to start a relationship with?
No, you nailed a lot of them, and we could probably do a whole episode on this. And actually, I might be able to use some coaching on this, because it's hard. I mean, you have to stand out, and especially in today's investment climate, a lot of folks are sitting on the sidelines. They're protecting. Maybe they're staying in cash versus investing um, for the future. And or they've invested in real estate deals that went sideways the last 2 years, and they're worried that they might have what's known as a capital call. So if their deal is
Mm,
not performing well, they can get additional capital called on their initial investment. And most people think, oh, I invested in something that's real estate. A, I can't lose my money, and B, I just have to wait around and I'll get more money. I'll double my money, and so the opposite has happened, right? Most people that went into real estate 2 years ago, they're a little bit more fearful because they've seen their deals asset value, the valuation go down. So yeah, so what's worked for us? Yes, I think being active on LinkedIn is. I've only started about a year ago, but it's been great. It's been wonderful to connect with people, um, and you never know. Like sometimes people will just track you and our team, right? We have a great team. They'll track you, and all of a sudden, 6 months later, they'll say, you know what? I love what you're about. I love what you've been posting. It's adding value to me. I want to learn more. I'm liquid now. I want to invest 100,000. And we've had stuff like that happen. Um, so that's been great. We do in-person events to try and get more, more face time with people. And then of course, I think investor referrals is
Mm,
always the best because that's all and automatically a trust factor there because
yeah.
you've done well for someone and now they want to tell their neighbor or their business partner or whoever.
Yeah, referrals is a big one.
Yeah.
Um, So I'm curious when it with all the knowledge you have and really understanding kind of the market and the industry and being a part of this for so long, for those that are out there and they're like, I'm kind of interested in real estate. I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to take that next leap. Especially, maybe I'm coming out of a business at some point, or my business is now operating and I've got additional cash flow and I need to place it somewhere. To I just sold my company and now I've got additional
Right.
cash that I need to place or whatever it is. What would you tell kind of that demographic that hasn't really gotten into real estate yet? What would you want them to know before really giving that some strong consideration?
Yeah, I think there's one fork in the road, Tanner, which would be, do you want to invest or do you want to be like the way more active, which would be like you're sponsoring a deal. Someday you're putting that deal together, right? And that could include like you're the guarantor on the debt or someone does a
Mm,
guarantee for you. Because when you're getting started, you have to probably do a personal guarantee, which is that's why a lot of people should think twice about being an active, like a sponsor of a deal, and especially if they're bringing in other people's capital, and they're just getting started, they might not have a lot of the experiential stuff in their gut yet to be able to do that. So that's a fork in the road. Do you want to be a general partner someday and put together your own deals, or do you want to really become an LP, or stay an LP, a limited partner, which means you
mm,
invest in other people's deals, right? So if you take the first path, I think start small is one piece of advice. Like start with your own money, put your own money at risk. That's what I did, and um, and learn from there, and then gain the confidence and say, all right, I'm ready for other people's money because it's a massive responsibility. You're stewarding their capital.
mm.
Number one rule: never lose money. That's a Buffett rule. Rule
It's a
rule
good
two is
rule.
like never forget rule number one. And then every other rules far less important, right? Number one, don't lose principal. Um, so then, if you're being a limited partner, I think getting started with a group. If you want to start small, whatever that means to you, depends on your investable cash and where you're at. But maybe you start with a small investment with a team. I would say hopefully in your backyard. That way you can go visit the asset, right? You can
Mm,
you can make it more real. It's not like a monthly statement of, oh, here's a couple videos and here's like a monthly P&L or a quarterly P&L. It doesn't become more as real to you. So if you want to really dive into real estate, a good thing to do is put your money at risk because where your treasure is there, that's where your mind will be. That's where your heart goes. So you'll learn a lot more, and then you can have conversations with the person who's putting a deal together, the general partner. Does that make
mm.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice to kind of break that down in that way for
Mhm.
those looking at different things. So I appreciate that. How about for kind of the business overall? I mean, as you look out for the next 3 to 5 years, what are you excited for? What's kind of on the horizon? Where do you see either the business or kind of your role as you kind of grow and look out for the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think we're living in like this is like big history, right? And maybe we're forgetting this, but at the time of this recording, we almost had a presidential candidate get assassinated.
Hmm.
We had a president drop out of a race so late and never hasn't happened since 1968, right? So a lot of uncertainty out there. Big history, right? The coming out of COVID, the Fed is doing what it's doing. So I think unwinding all of this for the next 2, 3, 4 years is is going to be fascinating, especially if Trump gets in as president. I think that's especially for people in the real estate world, that means something to people, and that might drive investor sentiment to say, all right, now someone forget about politics, but just policy, like from a policy standpoint, he's going to be very friendly to real estate, like he was in
Yeah.
the first term. So I think that's going to increase investor sentiment, put more capital to work. The dry powder comes off the sidelines. So that's one category. The next category of big history is like, well, check out AI. Like
Mm,
AI, people are saying it's got the same impact as what the internet was doing in the early 90s. So look at all the companies that sprouted from that, like Amazon and millions of other companies, massive
yep.
wealth creation. So and then change the world. Like how is AI going to do all that? I think that's still first inning on that.
Mm. Those are some really good points to kind of think about how that impacts or has potential impact for really all investment classes, but especially in real estate and things like that. So that's really
Yeah,
interesting to kind of think about. And yeah, there's a lot to just kind of settle over the next few months that we kind of got to
yeah,
see what's going to happen, right?
it's exciting. I mean, I'd rather be part of a growing dynamic economy. It gets, there's ups and downs, but man, the US is an amazing place to be. And I feel like, Buffett says you hit the genetic lottery if you were born in the US, right?
Yeah,
So we're so
yeah,
lucky and we're so blessed, and things are going to go up and to the right, and it'll be choppy, but it's going to go up and to the right. So
that's right.
I'm a huge optimist, especially about US, our economy, our people, our nation. So. And I just want to in business, I want to do stay mission focused. I want to serve people. I want to elevate humanity through our business dealings. I want to see our teammates do very well. Obviously, see our investors do very well. The property owners that we have, I want to serve them very well. So, I just love taking this ride. It's really a blessing.
Beautiful. Well, I know we've covered a tremendous amount of ground, and man, we could sit here and chat for another 2 hours and uncover
Hmm.
some fun nuggets. But I want to kind of bring us to a couple rapid fire questions. Really, just pull out some wisdom nuggets for the audience here. So I
Cool.
just got three quick questions for you. First one is, what would you say as you look back on kind of your entire journey? What would you say for you has been kind of your key to success?
Ooh, I think number one, being bold, and I think a lot of people listen to your show and responding to your work as a coach probably embody this. But like if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to take some risk. You're going to put yourself out there. You're going to be bold. You're going to delay the marshmallow, so to speak. So you have to think long term. But I think being bold is one of the key things in business. And then of course, choosing great partners, which I've
Hmm,
definitely done that. So
that's a big one.
yeah.
Gotta write that one down for myself. What advice, if you were to give just one piece of advice to an audience of business owners, entrepreneurs, that can kind of take away from here today, what one piece of advice would you want to give them?
It depends where you're at, but if you're just getting started in something or you're kind of pivoting your business, I would say, get started. Like,
Hmm,
like make some definitive moves and then write down your goals. I think that's key, or share them with someone too. It's like, have an accountability partner. Maybe that's your actual business partner. Maybe it's someone else like a mentor. But I do think like writing your goals, because people underestimate what they can achieve in the long term. They underestimate, right? They overestimate what they can do in the short term.
yeah,
So if you're really focused on like 3 to 5, 10 years out, like what is that? Begin with the end in mind and then figure out how to get there.
yeah. That's such a good piece of advice. And, it still surprises me to this day, the number of folks that don't write down their goals. They may set
Mhm.
them and still don't write them down. So I think that's a phenomenal piece of advice. And yeah, I've always been a huge believer in the overestimating what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 10.
Right.
There's a big piece with that there. So, one more rapid fire question. Book recommendations. Whether you're a big reader or audiobook, or if you're not a reader at all, maybe a podcast or something like that that you listen to religiously. But if you could give a book recommendation on any topic, what recommendation would you want to give to the audience?
Yeah, I'm pretty much, yeah, I'm very disciplined about getting into books, but I wish I actually read more, but I do listen to a lot of, I always have like books that are on my nightstand and I do read, but I'm always on Audible. I do a lot of podcasts, but I like to mention the Buffett shareholder letters, just like read
Mm,
them from the very first year and read them all the way through to today. There's so much wisdom, and you see some of his um, the businesses he chose to go into and why, and he explains all of that, and he also explains a lot of his mistakes, and he's very humble, which is so rare. It's like, man, if this guy was our best investor of our time, he's making mistakes. Like, you're not going to hit 1,000. You're not going to bat 1,000. So that's wonderful. Also, if you're looking for a management book, Andy Grove, it's called High Output Management. That's been one of my favorites for 15 years now. I've read it like 3 or 4 times. Um, it's a short book, but it's so he found it. He was like known as basically the third co-founder of Intel.
mm.
Not technically a co-founder, but basically became an early CEO and just crushed it. So
I love it. Those are phenomenal recommendations. And surprisingly, I don't know if anyone's actually suggested, the shareholder letters from Warren Buffett before,
mhm.
which surprises me. But I'm putting that one on the list, and I'm going to make sure I
Yeah,
let other
yeah.
people know they need to check that out. So
Do it, man. Do it.
before we get to the final question, I always love to kind of just end these conversations on for those in the audience that want more information, that want to connect with you, follow what the business is doing, and potentially do some investments with you all down the road. Where could we advise them to go for more information?
Yeah, I've given out my personal cell number for so many years, so here it is. It's 845-629-1808. And a couple people off of podcasts have hit me up. So I'm happy to exchange ideas with you, see if we can work together or if we can serve you as an investor or property owner. Um, or if you just want to talk about real estate technology, whatever it is hit me up. And LinkedIn, LinkedIn's a really good one. So Daniel French, ATX Acquisitions, look that up and you'll find me.
Beautiful. And I'll make sure to put it all in the show notes below so you can just
Yeah,
go grab, click, all that kind of stuff. But highly encourage at minimum, go to LinkedIn, send a quick direct message, say, "Hey, Dan, saw you on the Business Spotlight. Great conversation." It's always good to kind of make those connections and that sort of thing from the series. So,
love it.
with that, Dan, I've got one final question for you, which is simply, what is most inspiring to you today?
Yeah, I think just like being mission focused is inspiring because if you're just a mercenary out there, it's you're gonna get burned out. If you're kind of like coin operated, like hey, I'm just motivated by money. I think you're just gonna get burned out. It's not sustainable, and you're gonna fade away, and you're not gonna grind through the tough, difficult things you got to do in business. So if you're mission focused, like I try to be, serving people, building up a better world and you know building up your teammates, your investors, and all this stuff, you can pull into that like reservoir of energy that otherwise I think is not there.
Hmm, I like that a lot. Well, Dan, I want to say thank you again. As I mentioned earlier, I'm sure we could sit here for another like 2 hours if we had the time and really get into
Yeah.
it. So I appreciate you sharing kind of some of the story, the journey that you've had. Really just kind of pulling out some nuggets and thoughts for others in the community and being able to continue to serve and share. Absolutely love it, and I just want to say thank you again for taking the time.
Oh, thank you, man. A lot of fun. Appreciate it.